welcome to the Red Half of Sheffield meets part 8 or 9 or 10. I don't know how many of these damn things I've done. Today we are in the great pleasure of half of the Four Blades in the Pub. We couldn't get all four together because it's a little bit hard, but we have Phil and Ian joining us from Four Blades in a Pub. Gentlemen, how are we doing on this early evening UK time, early afternoon here in the States?
Yeah,
Doing
all
good,
good.
mate.
Yeah,
Good.
thanks for having us on.
Yeah, good to meet one half of the red half of Sheffield.
Yes, we did this. We did this right. We got half the Red, half of Sheffield, half of Four Blades in a Pub. I mean, you put it together, it's one full episode.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll ask the question that I've been wanting to know since I started listening to the pod. Oh, many I don't even know how many years ago it was. How did it all start? Where did it come from?
Do you want to go, Phil?
Yeah, so the pod bore out of an away day. Was it West Brom, Ian?
It was West Brom in the Championship.
Yeah, so
Promotion
the promotion season when Kieran Dowell scored, we'd gone to a pub before the game on the way down to West Bromwich, and it was just myself, John, and Ian, and a couple of other mates just sat in the pub talking shit, basically, like we do. And I can't remember who it was that said, you guys should record this because it's quite interesting and pretty funny. And we kind of thought, yeah, well, sounds stupid, but why not? We'll give it a go. And we wrote Dan in. Dan's a mate of mine that I've known for years. And obviously we've all become close friends on the back of sort of what we do. But funnily enough, it actually only started off with two blades. If you remember, Ian, you and John did it first time. And I remember that there was things on some of the fan forums about all this saying that Four Blades in a pub and there's only two of them, so what's the joke and all things like this. But it was just circumstances when we recorded the first one, and it just happened to be that Dan couldn't make it and I was on holiday, and but yeah, since then it's kind of grown and it's been really enjoyable, hasn't it?
Yeah, I remember it. We stopped off in Lichfield.
That's right.
Town just outside of Birmingham, in Beerbohm, knocking back some Jaipur, which fuels many a good idea. And yeah, it was that first couple we did. It was just really to try it out. So I think we wrote Luke in. Luke Prest, who's an artist, does lots of United sort of art that he's sold in the past. He offered to sort of do the production of it for us as such. But it was the first couple we did. We're just really just trying to get a sense of how the hell do we go about this? Recording it on a phone. I think we were in the Brothers Arms for one of them, and there was a lot of background noise, which we kind of wanted at the time, thinking this is, the whole point of this is it's us chatting in a pub, but nobody could hear us. I think that was one of the other complaints in the first few episodes was we can't hear it. It's just too loud in the background. And that continued for a bit because naturally, I think we all met up in the pub and we went to where we go pre-match, which is the Sheffield. But we went round various other pubs around the ground as such, midweek and or Sunday evenings to try and find somewhere to record. And then we just settled on Cross Sides at the top of Derbyshire Lane, which became our kind of spiritual pod home, if not our sort of pre-match drinking home, which remains the Sheffield.
Nice.
Yeah, it works really well actually at the Cross Sides because of the fact they've got a little room in the back that is quite private. So we just book it out once a week or once every 2 weeks, and nobody bothered us. It was nice and quiet, but it still sounded like we were in a pub because you could hear the bar noise from the opposite side of the room and things like that. But yeah, it's a shame we don't get together as often anymore. But that's just John's fault for moving down to London.
Yeah, we'll just put it on. We'll just put it on John as he's not here.
He'll be listening. So hello, John.
It's really interesting that you don't hear most, like, our pod is obviously recorded. We recorded over the StreamYard app we're using. It's crazy to hear that you guys actually were able to get a pub to do it. That's I mean, obviously logistics of getting everybody together was the inevitable reason it probably didn't work out, but it's still cool to think of having it recorded with, as you mentioned, the bar noises, the glasses, and the the little bit of laughter and whatnot. But that's certainly one of those things that does or did make you guys unique. But for me, why I just keep getting drawn back in, and I love when I refresh my feed every couple of weeks and there's a new Four Blades in the Pub. It's just your guys' thoughts are 100%. We don't give a shit. This is our honest opinions. If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, piss off. You can go listen to somewhere else. That's what in it. I like to think of like me. I'm genuine, but I'm an American, so I look like we're not going to pay any attention to him. You guys are actually, as you said, all live in and around Sheffield, and you guys are there. So your honest takes are like, one in its own. You're basically, how I look at it, you're basically the English me of, talking shit about the club, and you don't give two shits if anybody hears you or whatnot. You just keep rambling it on, and that's what I love.
Well, I think one of the things that makes it work is we don't always agree with each other.
Yeah.
And we're all quite comfortable in telling the other one, if they disagree, that we disagree and why.
Yeah.
And we're all articulate enough, maybe not always myself, but articulate enough to be able to put a point across in a manner that people can relate to. Not everybody's going to agree with everybody's points all the time, but there's a fair chance that one of the four of us is going to be making points that somebody agrees with.
Yeah.
I think there's a good balance, like you say, across the four of us. We're all good friends, but equally we're all different in our own way. And we've got different views. Like you say, I think the fact that we're not afraid to disagree, to have differing views and debate them. And I think at the minute, I like you say how you've been rather optimistically refreshing your feed every week or 2 weeks at the minute, Chad, to be fair. But we do struggle a little bit more just because of work life and everything else at the moment to do it. But when we do get together, we really enjoy it. And I think that's going back to what we said at the start as well. The key thing was we enjoy each other's company, be it, when me, Phil, John meet up on away days like we did at Brentford this season when we saw John down there. But equally, when we get online and we enjoy each other's company and we have a laugh. And look, we always said it, we have a laugh. If someone else enjoys it, great. It doesn't cost us anything to put it out there really, apart from a SoundCloud account. Because I mean, going back to that, you said how cool it was that we recorded in a pub. We were literally doing it on an iPhone. We didn't have any fancy equipment. It was just then uploaded, with the track and maybe some sort of segue tracks in between sections of it. But that was it. We're not high tech, and we're probably not high tech compared to any other, let's say, mainstream Blades fan channel podcast now.
Yeah.
we are the low tech Luddites, but it works for us because again, if we're not going to do it very often, we're not going to spend a load of money on equipment. Although Phil did invest in that headset.
Yeah, because there was one particular episode, there was something wrong with my laptop. If you remember, it sounded like I was shouting into the microphone all the way through.
I think I remember that episode. Yeah, it's like everybody else was at like a normal level, and it was like Phil's just like, what is he pissed off about? It's like, God, he's yelling.
You'd expect that from Dan, not me.
Yeah, it's like, hold on a minute, something's going sideways. But no, I mean, it's and like you said, when I started this pod, and then I reached out to Noah, and we got together and created this thing. As you guys said, you're doing it. You're not trying to spend a bunch of money. This is a hobby for us. We're not trying to be millionaires. We're not gonna stop our current jobs to do this. It's just talking to a few of your buddies over a couple of beers about how shitty our football team is and how we would turn it around, and then we move on. I mean, that's the whole fun of it.
We did actually talk about it, didn't we? We did talk about it quite early on. Do we ever want to make this so that it's something we make money out of? And we all unanimously agreed that's not what this is. It's always going to be a bit of catharsis for us when we've had a bad loss or whatever, and just a way of us to sort of get things off our chest, and that is it. That is all it ever was, and all it ever will be.
Yeah.
And I think once when John moved down to London, sort of would have been around 2020, 2021 time, it became a way of us staying connected because John doesn't get up for every game now. And actually, do you know what? Some of the best bits are the bits that don't get recorded or in the pre-pod chat, or actually when we've pressed stop and then somebody comes out with something and sets a whole different conversation off.
Yeah.
And then we realise that John's 45-minute work Zoom account's about to run out again. And, we all just disappear off rather rapidly, and that's that.
See, that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it fun. We were talking prior to recording. What is the background behind? Probably, I don't know. Blades Pod has a hell of an intro too, and then Tufty Club is just silence, and then David and Mark just start blabbing on about whatever the hell they're on that night. So it's certainly you and Blades Pod, you guys in Blades Pod, that have the two most iconic intros to your pod. What is the story behind that, and how the hell did you come up with it? Because it is beer genius.
So, well, as we were saying beforehand, when we were having a chat, it was a piece of, obviously it's Annie's song played on electric guitar. When we started out, as I mentioned, Luke was sort of helped us become a little bit more polished, shall we say, and set a few things up for us. And one was that intro music. So we got Luke to thank for that. I could message him actually and find out where he got it from, but he might be on shift, so we better not risk that. But I've got this inkling, and I could well be wrong here, that I remember Jim Phipps at his time in the club, time when he had a role at the club, recording Annie's song, actually singing it, and I don't know if he published it on social media somewhere, but a little bit of me wonders if it's kind of part of that, because it is clipped so short, that it would fit with it being a kind of short bit before a vocal kicks in, and I can't help feeling it's our famous former ex-lawyer, ex-CEO, whatever, I can't remember his title.
Whatever he was
advisor to the prince. But yeah, it was. It could well be that, but we'll find out. We'll let you know.
Yeah, I'm because it's been playing. It's playing in my head right now as I'm talking. It's been since I knew we were getting together today. That's all it's been. That's the song that's been stuck in my head all day, and it'll probably stay there as I try to sleep tonight. Okay, switching gears. Your best in all of your years supporting Sheffield United. Your highlight best moment in club history. I know it's probably a hard idea and hard to narrow down because there's been so many good memories over the last certain odd years, but try and nail down one for me.
I reckon, being put on the spot, I would say probably the Forest playoff semi-final win. Paul Pescasaledo, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. That's got to be up there. There's other more recent things. Obviously, winning promotion at home season before last was great. The Tommy Doyle goal against Blackburn, incredible. But I think I'd go back to that, the Forest playoff.
I think for me, winning promotion at Leicester, 5th of May 1990, being on an away end. Well, we had two sides of the ground, but I was behind the goal at Filbert Street. 15 years old. I think your formative years of watching United away, sometimes things just stick. And to see United go up to the top flight for the first time in my lifetime, which I know I was only 15, but it felt a huge thing at the time. Everyone wearing the yellow shirts. It's quite just an iconic day that's just sort of burned in my mind. But equally, a couple of seasons later, beating Wednesday at Bramall Lane and at Hillsborough, again doing the double over Wednesday. First time. It's these things that probably the first times resonate more with me than more recent. But that's not to say I haven't enjoyed, the Wilder years in particular.
I was gonna say your highlight, your top moment isn't like signing Vinny Souza. I mean, surely to God, that's got to be up there. But
I think we've seen worse. That's the thing.
yeah, it's true.
Frighteningly so, we've seen
Yeah,
worse. Much
no
worse,
kidding.
actually.
No kidding. So doing a 180, what's the worst moment you've witnessed in your United fandom?
That for me is quite easy. Getting relegated against Wigan. That was one of my worst days I can ever remember. It was just knowing that we should have stayed up. Everything that we did before the Villa loss the week before, and then the game itself, it was pissing down with rain, and United were just horrendous on the day. And obviously, Unsworth scoring a penalty, and West Ham winning at Old Trafford. Everything that went wrong that day, it was just horrible, horrible, horrible day.
That's a good shout, Phil. I'd probably think, I was actually there when we got relegated to the 4th division, when Don Gibbons missed a penalty. I was there with my grandparents. I don't remember it, I'll be honest with you. But for me, I would actually go back to last season. I think I've never felt so demoralised watching United in all my time, and I always used to be someone who refused to leave a game. I remember we were losing 5-1 at Oxford. I think it was 5-1 at Oxford. Alan Kelly was in goal, and my mate was going, "Come on, let's just go and get on the coach." And I'm saying, "No, I'm staying to the end. I'm sticking this out." I couldn't manage that last season. I think it was a Villa game, wasn't it, Phil, where we were all in the pub for the second by the time.
Yeah,
well, some were in there earlier, but I joined at half time.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I've never walked out of a ground that early before.
That was 38. That was 38. Wait, how many games? Wait, 3 last year? That was 35 kick to the balls every single Saturday or Sunday whenever we managed to play. 35 straight steel toe boots right to the nuts every single. I've never been more to your point, Ian. I have never been more demoralized by a team in a calendar year or in a football calendar year than I was last year. I was just like, because I don't know if either one of you know that I do live watch-alongs for the Sheffield United games on Sheffield United Way every week. The season prior, of the 46 games we played, I probably did watch-alongs for at least 38 of them. Now, give or take, we have a couple of midweek games that I'm not able to get to because of the work schedule. But last year, I think I did somewhere in the realm of 20 of them. And I remember doing the last game of the season against Spurs, just thinking to myself, why the hell am I doing this? The product they were putting out on the pitch last year was, I mean,
that team last season, comparatively for the level we were in, is the worst Sheffield United team I've ever known by some considerable distance. I know we've had teams that have been relegated to the 3rd division and 4th division, and clearly the players that we had last season would have been better than some of them. But in comparative to the teams that we were playing against, that gap is the biggest I've ever seen. And it feels bad, but it's our own fault as well. We set ourselves up to fail last season, and no surprise we did spectacularly.
Yeah, exactly. And, I can't help but feel I might be in the minority, but I can't help but feel bad for Heckingbottom last year. And I was like, I even said on our preseason pod, I said, we're banged on. We're banged on to finish dead last. We're terrible. We're not going to compete in this league. And I said, Heckingbottom's unfortunately going to get sacked at some point before Christmas. And then we're going to ride with some yoo-hoo, turns out to be Wilder, that's going to get us back our club and, turn it around. And he didn't do a damn thing. But it's just, I feel bad for everything Heckingbottom did, picking us up when the club was on its knees in the Prem the last time, then saying, all right, you guys appoint some moron in Slavisa Jokanovic, and we were god-awful under him, and then they bring Heckingbottom back. Hey, he just does, he's probably 5 games away from getting us automatically promoted that first season in the championship. And then he does it in his second time of asking. And then we throw up the big middle fingers to him and say, hey, thanks for everything. after the players that he didn't necessarily probably want. Kind of, we're like
that's the crux of it, isn't it? Who signed them players?
yeah,
Because I agree with you. I think Heckingbottom was treated badly, but who decided to go and spend whatever on Benny Traore and Anis Slimani and people like that? The manager's got to have some say in it.
It's true. It's true.
It's interesting. I had to fill answer the fan questions for When Saturday Comes magazine's pre-season preview this week, and one of the questions was, what was the one act by the club or an individual that most affected how you did last season? And I just put, our pre-season transfer activity was an unmitigated disaster, capped off by selling our most talented players, leaving us with a weaker team than we had in the Championship. And that's the nub of it. It's like Phil said, we had a team that wasn't anywhere near the standard required for the division we were in. We've had worse players, absolutely, and poorer quality players, but they were in a relatively, a level and a standard that was, on their par, really. But yeah, you're right. It felt like a kick in the nuts. It got to the stage where we actually sat in the pub some weeks and just looked at each other and said, "Should we go to the match? Arsenal." We actually said it. We actually said before the Arsenal match that evening, "Should we just stay here?" And then I put a bet on. I think I put a bet on 5, 6, and 7-0 while we stood in the Sheaf View, and then was cashing out as we went through the match. Didn't end up with as much money
cashing out as we went through the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, first 10 minutes. Yeah, cash out. Yeah, easily.
Remarkably, I actually stayed for the whole of the Arsenal game, but I think it was a bit of morbid fascination to see what it'd be like to concede 10. And remarkably, we managed to keep them down to 1 in the second half, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was something unlike anything I've ever seen. It's just for us over here, just turning on the TV and saying, how bad is this going to be? And then, like all your friends and whatnot know some semblance of the game of football. Well, my wife, my friends, they're not the biggest football fans. So when they see the score come across the bottom, or they walk into the room and I'm yelling at the TV telling Vinny Souza to quit pointing and actually run to the ball, and she's like, they're losing again. How can you root for these? I said, yeah, you just go into the other room. Just let me be. I'm about to destroy something. And she was awesome to come over, and when we went over, God, has it been almost 3 years now? Yeah, when we went and saw Millwall at Bramall Lane, and she didn't understand the like how I was fascinated by it and why I do what I do with the pod and everything. And when she went over and we had to ride up with the Millwall fans on the train because our train that we had got canceled because half of them broke down, and we had to
Welcome to Britain.
we had to sit she had to sit in a luggage rack, and I had to stand for the entire 2-hour train ride up to Sheffield from London. And I said to her, if they ask where we're going, we're just stopping over in Sheffield. I said, these are Millwall fans. They will kill us if they find out we're going to the game. And she's like, oh, that's serious. We don't have anything like that over in the States. I said, yeah, that's how big it is over here. So now she kind of has a little bit of an idea, but still, when we were getting battered last year, all of her friends would be like, oh, they lost again. Oh, they lost again. Then she'd be like, yeah, they're just having a bad year. And she would deflect so I wouldn't have to get involved and tell them how bad we sucked and everything and all that. But yeah.
Yeah, you get that over here though. I've had colleagues and bosses who are not bothered about football, might prefer rugby. And so Monday mornings would just be like, I see Sheffield lost again. And you have to bite your tongue, remain professional.
Exactly. You're the same. I've been there too. Oh man, that's just God. I like it so much more when we're winning and actually having a competent side. With that being said, as we turn the calendar to the 24/25 seasons, time of recording is 7/7. Where do you envision United come this year? or a year from now? How do you think the season's going to go? Do we go out of business? Do we get taken over? Where do you think
Absolutely no idea.
That's
Genuinely,
what I like to
I think we're just all in the dark. We know, we hear, we even over here, and you probably, with social media, you're probably more aware than other generations have been outside of, fan groups outside the UK, what's going on, because things get, are much more easy to access. But there are rumors, there are suggestions of people, but nothing official. We don't know what their financial wherewithal is. It could be they have not much more money once they've bought the club than the Prince has to keep it running. Like, you bloody well hope not, but we would hope they'd have a bit more about them. And we've run the club on a financial precipice. Whatever anyone wants to claim otherwise, we've pushed it to the limits, and we got away with it. Certainly in getting that promotion, because if we hadn't, I'd dread to think where we'd be. So at least we've had that. But my issue, and I'm probably in a slightly more negative place about the club than Phil at the minute, and Phil might suggest otherwise in the right reply, but I just find that for a club that's had 3 seasons out of 5 in the Premier League, we ought to be in much better shape on and off the pitch than what we are. And so I think asking where we'll be in 12 months with the extra uncertainty of a potential takeover, and things being alluded to this evening suggests it's passing to the EFL for scrutiny this week, or sign off. They may well have gone through some scrutiny already. But we don't know enough about it to even consider what that might mean in terms of budgets, in terms of rebuilding the club. And yeah, it after what's happened over the last 2 years, it's anyone's guess.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said, Ian. A lot of what you said. I think in terms of the question, where will we be in a year? If we're still in the Championship, that's probably not going to be the worst thing in the world, because as things stand with the squad that we've got, we could very easily drop through.
Yeah.
And I'm not being dramatic by saying that. I think we've got the makings of a decent starting 11, but a couple of injuries or suspensions taken out of that starting 11, and we're up shit creek.
Yeah.
So we need this takeover to happen, and we need them to be substantially wealthier than what the Prince is, because the whole team needs a rebuild. We've got maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 assets now.
Yeah,
that
I would
you'd
say
want
that,
to see,
if that.
Yeah, that you'd want to see stay at the club. And for a club, like you say, that's been in the Premier League 3 out of the last 5 years, it's pathetic.
Yeah. We have to be in me and Phil, before Ian jumped on in recording. A lot of the Prince's mistakes, we a lot of people have said, yes, the Prince has done a lot for this club, but it's taken some time to see all the mistakes come up. Like, all of a sudden we're under a transfer embargo because we didn't pay the entire, money to, whether it was for Brewster, or whether it was for Sander Berg, or whether it was Anel, one of those. We didn't, we're going to pay £24 million for a player. Well, yeah, we'll just send them 20. They'll never know. They're not missing the other 4 million. But it's just like, it's taken time for what we thought was going right for Sheffield United. It's taken at least 2 or 3 years for it to get unveiled that, hey, the Prince is, I don't know how this happens. You're a Saudi prince, and you're the most brokest prince that I've ever heard of. And so it's like, okay, yeah, he's done good for us, but in hindsight, he might have put us in a terrible position, because, as you said, we've been in the Premier League 3 years out of the last 5 and have absolutely nothing to show for it.
I think the term I used when we were talking before, Chad, was that our relative success has been in spite of him, not because of him.
Yeah.
And the foundations that he's built on sand have collapsed around his ears, and that's why we're in the state we're in now. I think obviously there's far cleverer business people involved in the club than what I could ever be, but any business needs to be led from the top. And the fact that he's checked out of Sheffield and never goes to the games, it's not critical that he goes to the games, but actually have a day-to-day involvement of the club, which doesn't seem to have, is part of the problem.
Yeah.
And with that comes a need to have sort of short, medium, long-term strategies and fallback strategies. That if you don't get promotion, what does that look like? What shape do we need to be in? And it feels like we just live a little bit hand to mouth, and it both financially, but in the decision making that we make. It's very reactive rather than proactive. And you'd hope that if a takeover happens, we can hope that they, like I said, they've got the financial backing to make that a success. But equally, I think having people with a proper plan and a communication plan.
I was
And
just
I'm not
about to say communication.
Communication, yeah. To me, it's key. What are their expectations for this club? What are they trying to get to? And actually, just manage expectations, because people can go, oh well, you should manage your expectations. You've come up from the Championship. You've been a Championship club for whatever it was, 12, 13 years prior to that. But realistically, we are a big club with a decent backing, and I know crowds don't generate anywhere near a decent proportion of a club's finances once you're in that top level. But we are a club that ought to have something more about us than what we've got. If smaller clubs like Brentford, Bournemouth, can get up there and have a greater plan for sustaining that than we seem to have, then that's where we need some change as well.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you. One word answer from both of you. Are we in the championship next year? Yes. Or no?
Yeah.
You don't think we do the double? Because I'm leaning more towards you, Phil. And I think that we're gonna get this all wrong. Something's gonna get screwed up with this takeover. It's gonna go on for a little bit longer. And this is not, I guess this is coming off of me being heavily negative. But I think something goes wrong. It delays. We have a screwed up preseason. We get a bunch of Vinny Souzas and Anus Slamanis in. And we get 12 points and we go down. Us and our crosstown rivals go down. And then we're playing in League One in a year. That's right now as of the situation that we're in. Because as you guys mentioned, we have no player. I mean, we have some semblance of a squad, but right now 1 or 2 injuries, we're screwed.
I mean, I know we can be negative blades, but that's catastrophizing on a whole new level, Chad, to be honest.
Have you been talking to my brother?
But this is where it takes me. It's just we've been under alleged takeover for what, 6 months now? 3 months since all these rumblings that American consortium that you got to put in quotes comes out and they want to take us over, and then it's just like, what the hell is going on? I understand the EFL has to do their due diligence, because if not, you'll have the likes of Bury and how Macclesfield, trickled down the leagues, and they went out of business. Bolton almost went out of business. Wiggins, Portsmouth almost went out of business. Clubs like that, I understand the EFL has to do their ownership, test and sustainability and all that stuff, so they don't get another hack in there and drive us completely out of business. But I just feel like takeovers at other clubs go over without a bat of an eye. Bang, snap your fingers and it's done. Us, it's like, well, we got to go through this hurdle. Well, we need bank statements. We need four tax statements for the last 15 years. Oh, they can't find them. So,
I'll say this though. I'll be honest. If we're doing some more due diligence this time than we've done on the previous 2, I'm fine with that. As frustrating as it is.
I think the problem for me, it comes back down to what you just said, Ian. It's the communication or lack of it. People are going to catastrophize over things if they don't actually know what's going on. They're always going to naturally think the worst. And this has stemmed from how poor the communication from the club's been for such a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily blame the people who are front and center that you see in terms of like Stephen Bettis, for instance, or or the media team. It's not them that's at fault. It's above them where the information blockage is. And all it does is it put people back up and starts making people make their own decisions as to how things are going rather than getting a bit of clarity.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, I think in light of that, and in light of where we end, last season as a whole, the fact we've got as many season ticket renewals as we've got, the fact that we'll be getting decent 5-figure attendances next season, relative to the capacity at the Lane, I think that's quite remarkable, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think it's undervalued probably a little bit in the club and taken for granted. And I think that adds to people's frustration, because whether we're not there putting the millions in that are paying the bills and propping up the club's finances, but ultimately everyone's putting money in some cases spending thousands of their, let's say, spare income to follow United. And
Yeah.
there's a feeling sometimes, I think, that that's just assumed as a given. And there comes a point, we've been there in the past with crowds at 8,000-9,000 in the 80s, and it was different era and crowds were generally lower. But it can drop off quite quickly if things aren't done properly.
Yeah, true. I mean, hell, look, I spent my hard-earned money to come watch them play. It's like you don't want to completely demoralize the supporter base, because then, as you alluded to, Ian, you won't have people show up, and then there goes building the brand of Sheffield United. And I guess it would be cool for you guys have been supporters way longer than I have, but wouldn't it be cool to just see some good news, good publicity come tied to Sheffield United, and not just negative after negative after negative after negative after negative? Oh, getting hammered every week last year, and then sacking managers in all that stuff. Wouldn't it be good to have some good news for a change? Right?
I think interestingly, some of the good news around the club is some of the stuff that isn't actually club related. The success of hosting the Women's Euros and stuff like that raised the profile. I think what I struggle with a bit is we've had opportunities really to we've had a jump on Wednesday for several years, and we haven't really capitalised. And it's hard in a city like this because you can't say we'll suddenly get all these new United supporters, because it is so tribalistic, family driven, etc. But you have got an opportunity for those kids who will still go off and support an Arsenal, Liverpool, and Man U, to give them something credible in their city to back and watch as well.
Yeah.
And the fact they can access it and watch it, hopefully at affordable prices, means you might just convert some who fall between the gaps of United or Wednesday ordinarily. And that's another opportunity we've missed. And holding back tickets last season, which I'm sure weren't sold given attendances, for travel agents to sell to international fans, actually I'd rather have seen us invest that in putting them into other fans locally in the city.
Yeah, I mean, I hope this just goes through and everything's okay and we don't have to worry. But it wouldn't be fun it wouldn't be fun being Sheffield United fans if we didn't have to worry.
Do you know what? I'd have less. Well, I'd have more hair and less grey.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'd quite like not to have to worry, to be honest.
No kidding. It'd be nice. It'd be really nice. One more before we get out of here, and I ask every single interviewee that I have on the show. Match day. What's your go-to match day beverage? Alcohol, non-alcohol, it doesn't matter. Whatever you go to. What are you hammering down at the pub when you guys were there?
Well, we go to the Sheffield, which is a Neeps End brewery pub largely, but with other guest beers. The go-to would normally be Neeps End Blonde, but I do vary it if there's something interesting on the blackboard to try, or on the on the bar clips, and try something different now and then.
Yeah, exactly the same. Neeps End Blonde, or they do Bessemer Blonde in the Sheaf now, which is a little bit cheaper. But match day, if I'm getting a drink in the ground, neck oil. Although it's got the shock of my life. I don't even. Were you there, Ian, when I got a neck oil start of a game a few months ago, and it was fucking cider.
Oh.
To be honest, with neck oil though, sometimes if it's not being kept well, it could well have been neck oil that's
true.
in the pipes. But John would probably join us in a blonde, and Dan would join us in a lime and soda.
A lime and soda, yeah. That's the irony of, isn't it? A podcast about being in a pub and one of us doesn't drink.
Yeah, no kidding. Man, I'm just waiting for my one mate that I can just go and hammer down about 6 or 8 Carlings with.
Carling.
Carling.
Carling, no.
Yeah. You're talking to the bottom of the barrel drinker over here. Whatever's cheapest. I'll go into the pub and say, whatever's cheapest. What do you got? What's cheapest?
Well, when you spent that much money coming over, we might let you off, but I'm sure we can educate you on some better beers locally when you're next over for a match.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, next time you're over, give us a shout. We'll take you to the Sheaf.
For sure. Yeah, I'm definitely going to make it a point to come over and see you guys when I'm over next. Hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later. Before we get out of here, drop where they can listen to the pod and all the social medias before we get out of here.
Well, we're at Four Blades in the Pub on Twitter X. I can't call it X. We do have a sort of Facebook and Instagram presence, but that's even more sporadic than the pod itself. And you can usually find it in everywhere you'd normally find a podcast. So I listen to us back on Spotify just to see if it sounds all right. Not through any sort of ego trip, but yeah.
He likes listening to himself talk.
It's more looking back to when John or Dan or Phil have said something absolutely hilarious. They just want to hear it back again because in the moment
it's usually Dan's quips, isn't it? Getting back to listening back to one of Dan's brutal assassinations of somebody by tearing a strip off him for some reason.
Oh, you gotta love it. Oh, okay. I really appreciate you guys coming on, and you guys following us, Red Sheffield on Twitter, and then on this YouTube thing, Red Sheffield, just Red Half of Sheffield. Just look it up. Until the next time when I have another Blades punditry on, I will leave you with Up the Blades.